Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and all the dignitaries. On behalf of Samudra Manthan Foundation, it is my absolute honor to welcome you all to this prestigious symposium. Today, we gather here to commemorate an incredible milestone, 75 years of Directorate General of Shipping, an institution that has been at the helm of India's maritime progress and global recognition. This symposium, aptly titled Coastal Transformation and Global Challenges, is a testament to the evolving landscape of the maritime industry. It brings together industry pioneers, visionaries, and thought leaders to spark new ideas, share valuable insights, and inspire the leaders of tomorrow. I am privileged to have my organization, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority, as a co-partner of this significant event. We aim to address critical issues and shape the future of the maritime and coastal ecosystem, focusing on innovation, sustainability, and transformation. So let's begin this insightful journey on an auspicious note with the lighting of the lamp. May I invite Sri Rajiv Sinha, Advisor, JNPA, Dr. Surinder Ahirwar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, Sri Unmesh Sharadwag, IRIS Chairman JNPA, MD VPPL and Director IPGL, Sri Shantanu Bhadkamkar. Yeah, so for the lighting of the lamp. Sri Shantanu Bhadkamkar, MD ATC Group, Director Samudra Manthan. Sri Santosh Patil, Head Corporate Affairs, Indian Register of Shipping. Sri Ashish Pednekar and Captain Vivek Bhandarkar. Please join us for the lighting of the lamp so that we start today's insightful journey on an extremely auspicious note. Kind request to all dignitaries to please come on the stage and take your seats, please. Thank you. We have Captain Vivek Bhandarkar with us, Director of Bhandarkar Publication and organizer of the prestigious Samudra Manthan Awards. May I request Captain Bhandarkar to deliver the welcome address.
Good morning once again to all of you. It's a wonderful day. Good afternoon. Yeah. So I hope you had no trouble traveling, transport, maybe you had no traffic. Let's start the day. Little rush. Good afternoon to our distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, and dear industry colleagues. It is my privilege to welcome you to this significant symposium where we have gathered to explore coastal transformation and global challenges. This symposium commemorates 75 glorious years of Director General of Shipping under the aegis of the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, a remarkable milestone. We are also delighted to have the Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority as our co-partner, reflecting the collaborative efforts that drive the progress of our maritime industry. This event aligns with the very recently introduced and visionary Sagar Manthan, the Great Ocean Dialogue, and a first of its kind thought leadership initiative by the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. Sagar Manthan addresses critical themes such as connectivity, infrastructure, development in a dynamic world, fostering partnerships for progress, and addressing important issues of sustainability, technology, and innovation. Additionally, it emphasizes maritime governance and social impact, with a focus on greening the oceans and advancing cutting-edge maritime solutions. We are guided by the visionary leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji as transformative initiatives, including Coastal Shipping Bill updates to the Merchant Shipping Act, have positioned India as a leading maritime hub. These reforms aim to create a dynamic, sustainable, and globally competitive maritime ecosystem. I will keep this brief as we have an engaging agenda ahead with inspiring decisions for distinguished speakers. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to all of you and look forward to the meaningful exchanges that will shape the future of our industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Now let's begin the first session. And we are privileged to have Sri Rajiv Sinha as the moderator for navigating a geopolitical storm, India's path to sustainable growth. A former senior Indian administrative service officer, Sri Sinha has made significant contribution to India's maritime sector. Along with him, we have the panelists as Sri Unmesh Sharad Wagh, IRIS Chairman JNPA, Dr. Surender Ahirwar, Joint Secretary Ministry of Commerce, Sri Shantanu Bhadkamkar, MD ATC Group, and Sri Santosh Patil, Head Corporate Affairs, Indian Register of Shipping. Over to you, sir. Before we start the panel discussion, we would also love to hear from Captain Vivek Anand, CVSA and Associates. May I request sir to deliver his keynote address.
Well, for a moment, I thought you'd almost forgotten. But anyway, let me get my eyes. Left my eyes on the table. So, good afternoon, a very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's really a privilege for me to be giving this keynote address. But honestly, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to do it. And I'll tell you why. Basically because I've always been the guy who's shaken the hornet's nest and said, things which are not the norm, to which not to please people, and especially the dignitaries. But that's exactly why we have this symposium, to get people to think, like they say, out of the box, to challenge the system, to have the guts to say the unsaid. So the purpose of my doing this today is to get you kick-started to thinking, and thinking hard, because we have, with great difficulty, gathered the best of the best panelists to address today two of the biggest and burning issues. My sincere and heartfelt compliments to Captain Vivek Bhandarkar, and not to mention the woman behind the man, Mrs. Bharti Bhandarkar, who has constantly propelled and steered Bhandarkar Publications along with their very able team. Well, having done the polite stuff, now I'm going to just get on with the event. Two topics for today, as you know, are navigating a geopolitical storm, India's path to sustainable growth. Now here, in my personal opinion, we tend to be reactive rather than be proactive and be prepared for such eventualities which are inevitable in the ever-changing global scenario. I'm sure my contemporaries here will address this issue and share their valuable insights with you, with all of us. Second is transforming coastal shipping in India. Well, this topic has been discussed over and over again at many forums, but frankly speaking, there's very little that has been done or achieved over the last many decades. To say to put it specifically, more than seven and a half decades. And so my request to the dignitaries today would be to take the bull by the horn. We seem to come up with what I call band-aid solutions, but really no sweeping changes have come forth so far. Cancer hai, band-aid laga ke dekhte nahi to patti laga lenge. That's our attitude. Now, why are these issues hot and burning? And therefore, I think we need to understand where India stands in terms of global shipping. So I'm going to put a few hard facts in front of you, and I would like some honest answers, but don't worry, I'm not going to cross-question you on that. So here we go. How many of us know that almost 10% of the ocean-bound trade, that is out of 186, 187 countries, India alone has 10% of the global ocean-bound trade. To be specific, 1.253 billion metric tons out of the total of 13.12 billion metric tons. And these are UNCTAD figures. Second, how many of us know that in the early 1980s, when people like me and many of the people, my contemporaries who are here, we went out to sea, 66% of the world's ocean fleet was either manned, managed, owned, operated, or chartered by Indians or Indian companies. 66% of the world ocean-going trade. Today, I'm sorry to say, it's less than 10%. Third, how many of you are aware that today India imports crude oil worth about $130 to $150 billion per year? Billion dollars, again, not $1 million. If we take about 1.5%, 2% as the freight cost, we are paying at least $2 billion per year to foreign ship owners. To put things in perspective, at a cost of about $100 million a piece, every VLCC, a large ship, we can buy 20 large vessels every year, just instead of what we are paying out for freight costs for only crude oil and some energy products. And to top all of this, India has less than 1.2% of the world tonnage. To be specific, 1,526 ships with a GRT, gross registered tonnage, as of December 2023 at 13.75 million metric tons. Out of these 1,500 odd vessels, we have just about 487 vessels which are being used for overseas trade. I don't want to go into what Greece owns, which is approximately 18%, and China, which owns approximately 13%. Where is our 1.2% compared to that? Now that takes me to shipbuilding. The shipbuilding capacity in our country, the situation is even more pathetic. We have only 0.07%. I'll repeat, 0.07% of the world's shipbuilding trade. Just to rub it in, China builds 46% of the world's ships. South Korea builds 29%. Japan builds 17%. Now let's come to the most painful part. If we put all the cargoes together, we Indians or India imports, guess what? 95% of our cargo on foreign tonnage, 95%. Our total freight bill is $75 billion per year, year after year. For $75 billion, we can buy 750 large vessels every year. It's been more than 75, 76 years since independence. Where are we in terms of shipping? Let's be frank, let's be honest, because I firmly believe we got to know where we stand today before we start patting ourselves at the back. We have the Tatas, we have the Birlas, we have now the Adanis. We've had the Ambanis. We have the money, we have the technology, we have the manpower, we have the labor. We have the coastline, 7,500 kilometers, but we don't have a Maersk or a CMS EGM or even a NYK type of ship owner in the country who have 500, 600, or even 800 ships. Do we realize how vulnerable that makes us to be dependent on foreign tonnage for the trade to and from our country, considering 10% of the ocean trade is to and from India? God forbid if some sanctions are imposed on this country, our country can be shut down in a matter of days, not weeks or months. So people of India, I ask, what do we lack? Gentlemen, ladies, in one word, planning. Planning is our biggest flaw. Let's accept it. Well, I guess I've said all the bad things. Now people will say, let's come up with some solutions. So I'll give you 3 simple solutions, what I think is right. The biggest problem we Indians or Indian ship owners have is the cost of finance as at competitive rates compared to foreign ship owners. We spend $75 billion, like I just said. But our Ministry of Finance cannot provide cheap finance to our ship owners or the shipping community in the country. 2, let's plan. And in this perspective, let me say, plan large or the largest shipyard in the world. We literally have 1.5 dry dock in the largest shipyard of this country. And we seem to be very happy about it. In China and Korea, they have 10 dry docks in one shipyard. We have 600 meters of quay length. They have 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers of quay length. 3, let's build our seagoing manpower we had to be the largest global supplier of competent and capable seagoing staff. I'm sure there are many experts over here in the audience who can tell us how to do it. Now, I think I should calm down. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Samudra Manthan Symposium. And I really hope we have some very interesting and thought-provoking discussions today. More importantly, I think each of us should learn from our panelists, very esteemed panelists that we have, and actually go and put what we hear and talk about or discuss today in our day-to-day job, and make it a life mission to become the biggest maritime nation in the world. Once again, with that, I declare this symposium open for discussions. Namaskar. Jai Maharashtra. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Captain, for highlighting various issues as well as suggesting solutions, which has set the tone for today's symposium. And now over to Rajiv Sinha, sir, for our today's first session on navigating a geopolitical storm, India's path to sustainable growth.
Good afternoon, Captain Bhandarkar and directors of Sagar Manthan, which I came to know at least 15-20 years back at that time, and the distinguished panelists on the dais, my friends from the industry, ladies and gentlemen. The subject for this panel is a very relevant one at this time in particular, when the whole world is passing through a kind of a turmoil caused by two specific centers of wars, but it affects the whole world in one way or other. Now, the context is that in last 100 years, trade, commerce, and shipping has exponentially grown, to which Captain Anand referred just now in his presentation or talk. Now, because of that, the world has integrated because of trade, commerce, and shipping in a way which was not there 100 years back. Most of the slogans of the countries 100 years back was more on protectionism. WTO was not known. Now WTO is the main instrument through which countries fight battle for open trade, for restrictive trade practices, one against the other. And Mr. Airwar from Ministry of Commerce would be well acquainted with the kind of disputes which are raised by different countries against each other on restrictive trade practices, which were not there earlier. High custom duties were the norm almost everywhere. India was known for 80 to 90% of custom duty in those days. So what I am trying to drive at is, in this integrated world, the conflicts, wars which take place one corner or other, with which a country like India, for example, has nothing to do, also impacts India in a big way. It impacts others also. Now, as you know, goods are manufactured not in one place. Around the world, maybe 10, 20 places. They are assembled in one place and then again carted out, transported, or shipped out to different countries. So this is a global supply chain which gets disturbed by any geopolitical strategic disputes or storms, as we call, anywhere in the world. Now, just now, Captain Anand referred to the India's need for fossil fuel, which basically comes from the Persian Gulf and Arab countries. Because of US sanctions and the wars, and also the threat posed by the Houthis in Red Sea and Suez Canal zones, Gulf of Oman and all that, the shipping, particularly of fossil oil from those areas, was greatly affected. Fortunately, because of our deft diplomacy, we had an alternate source from Russia. Because of that, we could maintain price line of the fuel supply in the country. And that has a large implication. For example, if the fuel cost goes high, the inflation rocks up. And then the country suffers as such. The poor suffer the most. So our GDP goes down. So it has a cascading effect. So the question comes, this is in this kind of situation in the world where globally we have got, for better or worse, far more integrated compared to earlier. We have to face this kind of unforeseen situations, and how best to prepare India for that. We all owe to the country to think over it and do our bit wherever we are to prepare the country to become resilient in case of such threats and such occurrences around the world. Now, these threats can be talked in general terms, but in specific terms in India's context, we can see that our threats come from the north, from the west, mostly from these two sides. that is immediate to our borders. But there are threats which occur elsewhere. The violent incidents taking place elsewhere because of various reasons like territorial ambition of, say, China, the attempt to dominate the world in terms of politics or economy or trade or commerce. And that is the war which goes on between US and China. But see, despite the fact that US and China are quarreling over trade and bank or their balance of trade, the trade between the two countries is still prospering. So diplomacy is taking care of that part, the country's interest, that militarily, politically, otherwise, on human issues, human rights, etc., they keep fighting and accusing each other. But so far as the country's interests are concerned, they are not willing to compromise on that. On ideology, there may be difference, but trade and commerce language, both the countries understand very well. So in Indian context, we have to prepare ourselves by 2-3 things. One is the deft diplomacy, which allows us resilience in case of such situations. Number 2 is to prepare ourselves to develop, to the extent possible, large sufficiency, or to the extent of large sufficiency in the basic things like fossil fuel by developing renewable energy, by making as much manufacturing as possible in this country so that we supply to the world rather than world supplying to us, so that in case of supply chain disturbance due to wars elsewhere, at least in India we suffer less. Trade and commerce bound to be affected, but we will suffer less. A country which is highly dependent on import and export is bound to suffer more in case of supply chain disturbances. So, fortunately, we have a huge domestic market. So, if we are able to produce goods that we need to a great extent, we can't be 100%, of course, then we would be better able to meet the situations. Today, in the panelists, we have got different segment of our trade and commerce and economy represented. I think their short CV is already there on the table.
It's something like we'll be providing on the email.
Okay. Now, therefore, I will request each of the panelists in a 4 or 5 sentence to give their introductions, since all of you may not be knowing each one of them. Though it is given on the website, as you say elsewhere, you may not have already seen it. So I will request them to give a short 4 or 5 line, their short introductions. We were trying to save time, therefore I am saying that. And secondly, I would request my panelists take 3 to 5 minutes for giving their own say or views in regard to this subject. And then we will open it for question and answer session from you. So kindly note down your questions if you have any and refer to the panelists by name. And that will be once all of them have finished this thing. So with your permission, sir, may I request?
Guest from Delhi.
Yes. See, you are the only one from Delhi. Therefore, we have to give you the first.
I have the privilege. Thank you for this privilege.
Yeah. So I request Mr. Surinder Ahirwar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, to give his views on the topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajiv sir, and it's been really a pleasure for me and a privilege to be in the midst of just not the dons of and the ideologues of the industry, but also the dons of the business or the industry in the marine transportation, shipping, trade, And it's a real privilege and a pleasure to be here in Mumbai in this expansive, a grand convention center, which has again come as a surprise to me, a pleasant surprise. And after seeing Yashobhumi and Mandapam in Delhi, I was not actually where I heard of this Geo Convention Center, but good, I have seen it today as well. So thank you for having me, the couple Bhandarkars and the Sagar Manthan team for this conversation. And I really. Maybe one of the reasons for coming to this place and joining this conversation is the subject which you have chosen for this occasion. And the geopolitical storm affecting the shipping or the supply chains or the logistics, right? They all are in the same continuum. And I think, the brainstorming on a stormy subject, right, being organized, I think it's a good idea to have such conversation. Talking about the supply chains or the global supply chains, of which we do not make so much of a great part, though we are not contributing more than 2% of or less than rather 2% to the global supply chains in form of the trade. And therefore, we are naturally resilient, or our supply chains are naturally resilient. But yes, there's a relative term. As Mr. Singh was citing, like, we have lots of potential, yet there are, some negatives prevailing, or we are not able to generate that positivity on many of the accounts. And in that respect, yes, we are trying to expand our role in the global supply chains. And therefore, we are to that extent also vulnerable or non-resilient to that extent. Otherwise, we are just comfortable, right? We do not have much of the problem. Trade goes on. So our skins are safe and intact. Nothing is getting affected. My balance sheet is also going good, right? But when you look at from the national perspective, it's right. Whatever points Mr. Singh has indicated, we are definitely lacking on those. But who has to correct it? Who has to correct it? And we tend to address some invisible, undefined audience, or maybe the master, who can probably change it. Maybe you are addressing the government. I think that's not the right person or entity to address these problems too. Because post 1991, the role of the government in business has already been progressively going down. And of late, it has been clearly stated that doing business is none of the business of the government. So there's almost a separation of business from the governance, and more so compared to the previous years. Now, when you are looking at business now, you cannot be expecting much from the government, yet since the questions are always addressed to the government has started getting into the role of a facilitator. Now, you would understand this perspective, how we have got into the scene, and as a facilitator, you would have heard, and you would definitely know, I guess, about two major initiatives in last 3 years. One is, of course, the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan for Development of Infrastructure. I will not elaborate on this thing, but I'm just trying to tell you that these two initiatives, one is, as I said, National Master Plan initiative, and second is the National Logistics Policy. Now, this is just not doing, or expressing an expression of the government to play a very active role, but to just create that strong nudge among the business stakeholders, and also create that common infrastructure, and also create that common culture which is required for a very resilient, efficient, and cost-effective logistics and supply chains. And to that extent, we also attain resilience in the entire global supply chain or domestic supply chains. So there has been a great attempt to define for the first time in India what logistics is all about, right? There's been a conversation which has been going around logistics for last couple of years now, right? Earlier, we were not even having a word logistics in the entire, the government texts, whether rules, regulations, acts, policies. Nowhere logistics was a term being utilized. Today, logistics is a subject which is being conversed and discussed in every forum, irrespective of what sector of economy we are talking about. So this is a very, very positive development. And basis this discussion, the brainstorming which is happening like such forums, a lot of learnings are emerging out of it, and they are being adopted not only by the government, but also by the business. So that's a very positive sign. And of course, there's a rapid increase in the infrastructure which is happening, and which is seemingly making or attaining the reduction in the logistics cost and attaining of the efficiency, which you must have noticed in the last couple of years. So that's happening, definitely happening. And on the side of the global supply chain, there have been huge efforts being made by the government, as Mr. Sinha has also indicated, the diplomacy now, which is combined with a lot of business sense in it or business interest in it. We have, to a great extent, achieved success as well, whether it's a G20 forum or IPEF forum, or even the political forums, the BRICS as well, which is, of course, more economic and then political. But yes, the strategic forums, political forums, or the pure business forums, which we call as international forums, we have been able to talk business separated from the politics. And to that extent, probably we have been able to send a message that the geo-economics should be kept secular of the politics. And to the extent we are able to attain this objective, I think we are going to attain that resilience which is desired in the supply chain, especially with respect to the political storm or geopolitical events which are affecting today probably the entire globe, and less, of course, us. And as Mr. Sinha has also indicated that, our reliance on Russia in times of the crisis in the West Asia, for fuel, or for fossil fuel in particular, has really kept our supply chains much more intact, our economy much more stable, despite the storms all around. Thank you. So this is just an initial remark, sir. You're giving me 1 more minute. Thanks for the bonus, sir. So yeah, and we have, just to add some more details, since he has been kind enough to give me 1 more minute. Today, I just want to also share with all the stakeholders and the joints of the industry in the room that we are not only clear about what global supply chains are, what domestic supply chains are, what logistics is, and what trade is, and how are these elements placed on the continuum of the supply chains. So from the policy perspective, the governance perspective, we understand if we talk of the supply chains means the manufacturing plus logistics plus the market. So very, very broad classification or understanding of it. And then when we look at these 3 buckets, we also look at, first, suppose that manufacturing, we are into creating manufacturing infrastructure and having such policies which can increase the manufacturing or the production in the country, especially in the manufacturing sector. So you would be knowing about the PLI scheme which we have launched. Then we are creating all industrial infrastructure across the states in the country through National Industrial Development Corporation, or NICDIT, the trust which has been created for this purpose. For logistics, as I've already said, 2 major initiatives. And then for trade as well, we are trying to have a policy on e-commerce. We are going to have maybe, if not soon, in a near future, the industrial policy, also a new industrial policy. So all these things would, ensure action in 3 major buckets which are part of the supply chains. And then when we extend these domestic supply chains to the external or the global supply chains, for that we have a foreign trade policy which connects our production centers or the production sector, manufacturing sector or the agriculture sector to the global market. And for that, we are going into FTAs with individual countries or the plurilateral forums or the trade blocs. So there's action on all fronts. And then there's a general conversation which is going on the supply chains and in global supply chains, and to make them more resilient. For that, whatever forum which exists in the world today, we are part of every forum which is looking into the resilience of supply chain, be it the supply chain resilient initiative with Australia and Japan, or the IPEF initiative with US and other 14 countries, including us, or the supply chain resilience to the extent BRICS is looking at. And we have successfully launched that digitalization initiative in the G20 under presidency last year. So India has become, or the Indian presidency is landmarked with adoption of high-level principles for digitalization of trade, which is kind of a commandments, 10 commandments for which will determine the digitalization process in the trade across the world, or in particular the international trade. I think, sir, that's good enough for the... Thank you so much.
May I request now Mr. Unmesh Wagh to give his views on the topic.
Thank you, sir. This particular topic, I mean, when I joined 5 years back to this particular sector, the logistics sector, now which is a forefront of discussion, that from in those 5 years till today, I can tell you the only certainty, one problem is getting over, another problem is starting. So now the only one thing I can guarantee, that you have to be ready for new challenge every time when you think that you have settled with your older challenge. So in old days, in Europe, they used to say, when the France sneezes, the Europe catches cold. Now, today, in this world, it is known that any global giant sneezes, the whole world catches cold. And this is very true. And every day, something and other is happening, and which we can't say that we don't have any involvement in it, especially in logistics sector. Now, just take the example, I mean, you had your lunch, and now you must have your coffee also. That simple, humble cup of coffee has cooperation with 29 industries and 18 countries. That much dependency we have in international trade. When that interdependency is there, definitely the geopolitical situation going to affect it. If one country is affected, the whole supply chain get affected, and then we have a lot of issues because of that. Just one example, that in 2008, the reduction of 0.1% of GDP of the world as per the purchasing power parity resulted into reduction of 13% in the trade, in the international trade. So that much sensitive the whole world, and the more sensitive is a logistics sector. That's why when we speak about the geopolitical situation, we have to be aware of it, and we have to ensure that we will be least affected by it, because we are going to affected because of it. So when it started with the COVID, now Captain Anand talked about many things, and he showed us a mirror, and as JS sir told, that it's we have to overcome all these shortcomings and go forward. But let me tell you, in those COVID days, it is India who manufactured all those vaccines and supplied to the world. So these are our capability, which many times, unfortunately, we could show in the time of crisis only. So those kind of capabilities which we have in the time of crisis, we have to make them routine, so that most of the things which he has showed us that we are lacking, we can use it for our purpose, our advantage. Now, as I talked about the COVID days, in those COVID days, because of the mismatch of trade, there was a sharp increase in our tariff. The $1,400 for China to USA increased to more than $16,000. And we just about to reach the pre-COVID level, then the Suez Canal crisis because of the Houthi rebel came. So whatever the additional capacity which we had, which the shipping line had added, that was used for this excess of that fortnight of the time required to cover the European market and to maintain that schedule. So suddenly that crisis took over the another crisis. By that time we settled this particular crisis, then there will be another crisis, that there is a too much reduction in rates and shipping lines will face issues. So one thing is a constant, that is the global crisis will come, and we have to keep it in mind because we are in this sector, that we have to fight it with. But how to fight it with? So there are 2-3 things which we have to understand, and those things we have to inculcate in our day-to-day life in this logistics sector. First, competitive advantage are there. Every country should play on its competitive advantage, but same way we should have minimum capabilities in all the sectors. And that is what we should plan now. That we should not go for the manufacture of container full-fledgedly, because it is not possible to beat China. But we should also have minimum capabilities, that in case China doesn't provide us that particular container, then we should have some capability to manufacture those containers. So we should have the optimum balance in competitive advantage and dependency and the minimum capability. That is one thing. Second, as most of you might have also read that book of the Golden Road by William Dalrymple, in which he cited one example, that Indian trade in 1st and 2nd century BCE used to be with the Western countries, mostly North African countries. But when that trade stopped, in those days, in 2nd, 3rd century, the Indians started looking towards east, towards Indonesia, Malaya Peninsula. So now our ancient wisdom said this. So we should also consider alternatives. We should have alternate markets. We should have alternate routes. That's why Government of India started INSTC. We have the IMEC corridor. We have Indo-African partnership. We have Indo-Russian partnership. So we should have alternate markets. We should have alternate routes. We should have enough capabilities indigenously, that we should not be dependent upon all of our need to any one foreign countries. So that kind of things will prepare us for the changing global scenario and the crisis. Thank you.
You have bonus 1 more minute.
I have bonus 1 minute. Okay. So I will take 1 minute then. And the one important advice I would like to give you in my opening remarks. I mean, we are the nation, we love cinemas and we love our Bollywood songs. So in the There is one very famous Indian movies. I mean, my friend from ONE Shipping Line, somebody will guide him for that movie. But you might have seen that Munna Bhai MBBS. And there was that opening song, Subah Ho Gayi Mamu. So in that song, those lines, Ek kahani khatam to duji shuru ho gayi mamu. So in this particular business, I mean, you should be ready for this. Because every day, I mean, today morning only, Rajiv sir and we are having our Ward 1 meeting, and I don't want to discuss that subject, but morning newspaper, he was not aware. I showed him that there was this news. And then we started, our agenda was totally different. But we spent almost 50% of our time on that particular agenda because that was very much necessary to our field. That is a logistic field. So my advice and my suggestion, and which I also consider that, we should be ready for this thing because we don't know as I told in the beginning, the only certainty is uncertainty in this field. So we should be ready with that. Thank you.
Wait, let me add just one thing, we should not be creating such crisis which we tend to live in and crib about. Let's take some preventive action. Why we should be hearing such news which are adding to our woes only? Sir,
Thank you. May I request now Mr. Shantanu Bhadkamkar to give his views on the subject. He is a doyen from trade and commerce for a pretty long time. So I'm sure he would be giving something more food for thought.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I'm Shantanu Bhadkamkar and I am trustee on Samudra Manthan Foundation, and I think I know most of the people sitting here, so that's good enough. I think Umesh sir, you said that you changed your topic, and that's what happens to me. I come prepared for every panel discussion, even if 3 minutes, but once I sit here, the thought process changes. And all of you, what you have said has influenced my thought process. You went back 2000 years, I will go back 150 years. Agarwal sir said about logistics on government agenda. Yes, now Prime Minister speaks not only about supply chain resilience in Quad, but Prime Minister also speaks about multimodal logistics, not just multimodal logistics, but seamless multimodal logistics. And thanks to friends like you that you have taken this message to PMO. So thanks about it. Vivek said that we have demand for 20 large ships, but maybe we can manufacture, or maybe it's not our priority, we can do some more important things. So largely, I think where we stand in India, we are right now fishing in troubled waters, because the way geopolitics is after Second World War, these are the most troubled times. But now this is time, Unmesh Wag, as you said, we have the risk appetite today. That's different India. We have a risk appetite today for fishing in troubled waters, and it's not only the Indian multinationals or mega corporations, but Indian middle-sized companies also have risk appetite now. I will not discuss about the geopolitics that's happening or geoeconomics, but I'll rather have some pointers, and we will see what history has taught us. And Umesh ji, I will assure you, you will think that I am talking about today. Like, one of the biggest thing we have done is import of oil from Russia. That's a big change for Middle East. You ask Middle East, they took us for granted. Now you can see they are coming to us in a very different manner. We had good relations. So lot of things change, Russian oil, but that is further compounded by our re-export of that oil after processing. So geopolitics has created many new opportunities. Of course, it will create lot of challenges also. Going forward, if I say that much as things change, they remain the same. So if I go back 150 years, it will resonate with what's happening today, and ditto. The detailing may change, but issues are same. If I take the American Civil War, 1861-65, that changed India completely because the demand of Indian cotton increased considerably. The focus was different. Then our new businessmen developed in India. There was a lot of speculation. There was a big boom and then there was a bust. But we were lucky that that bust was followed up by opening of Suez Canal. Now when Suez Canal opened up, again there was a big demand for Indian goods, which of course cotton, but not just cotton, we proliferated into textiles. So ancillary industry started developing and India, Mumbai became the largest textile capital with lot of mills. So it changed that canvas. As a result, we started shipbuilding in Mumbai. What happens locally is the importance which Calcutta, Chennai and Pune had at that time transformed, and Mumbai got bigger importance than all of them three put together when Mumbai wasn't at that position. So there will be a lot of internal changes. But is that all? We also had emergence of wealthy class and middle class that time, which is what we are talking about today. It was modernization of Mumbai. If Suez Canal was a big development that transformed, Indian Railways was developing. That's what we see. Our road, our logistics infrastructure is changing. We go forward, we can see that that era was about change of commodities. From indigo and opium, we were shifting to jute, we were shifting to tea, we were shifting to some manufactured products. Then coming to a lot of things we talk today, food shortages, exactly they mirror, and that's become a global issue. And last two things I want to talk about is technological advancement was steamship and telegram. Today we are talking generative AI, we are talking about green shipping, we are talking about blue hydrogen. So I think it's 150-year cycle. Another important thing was transformation of currency. The currency started standardizing that time. Today we are talking about a different currency model and the digital currency model. With these few points, I think I rest my case that we can look back and move forward and get inspiration from a couple of examples I gave for new opportunities of fishing in troubled waters. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Badkamkar. May I now request Sri Santosh Patil, Head Corporate Affairs, Indian Register of Shipping, Mumbai. I think all of you should be aware, but I would like just to say that Indian Register of Shipping, India competed with other registers of shipping. Every ship has to register if it has to ply in international waters. And India did not have any registered agency like you would have known Lloyd's Register of Shipping, etc. So this got established somewhere in the early 90s. And today it is a very thriving organization. And India is one of the few countries which has got its own register of shipping. Now, they are dealing daily with the ships, issues relating to ships, the risk, the building, the construction, to which both Mr. Badkamkar and Captain Anand referred to. So I request him to give his views. Please, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for the kind words. I guess none of the dignitaries on the panel need introduction, but I think I need a little introduction about myself. So I've been working in the ship agency on the operating side for about 10 years, and subsequently into the maritime satellite telecommunications for about 5 years, and with the Indian Register of Shipping for more than about close to 11 years. That background gave me different perspectives of the same industry, which I could view from the operating side, from the regulatory compliance side, as well as from the technology side. So that's a little bit about me. And of course, most importantly, I should actually thank the Samudra Manthan Foundation, Bhandarkar Publications, Captain Bhandarkar and Mrs. Bharti Bhandarkar for inviting me to share my thoughts on this particular topic. I see some friends from the media here, so I will state that whatever observations or comments I make are basically my own as a student of economics or a student of public policy. Yeah. So we heard a lot of words today: disruption, challenges, events like pandemic or other disruptions, which basically have a big impact on the supply chains. Now, while these disruptions happen because of either man-made events like the conflicts or any other aspects, or non-man-made events like pandemic, all of these impact the industry in a great way, and especially the shipping industry being the industry which connects the world in terms of trade and commerce. I think that it impacts significantly, and that doesn't need any further statement from my side. But what I would like to talk about as a part of the discussion is the interplay between the geopolitical interests and the way these interests are played out on the global domain. So essentially, the geopolitical interests, most of the Western nations have a model or a way through to use their foreign policy through the means of sanctions per se, and we have already heard about sanctions being talked about. That kind of got me thinking, and I've been observing this subject for since 2.5 years, since the start of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So I can say that I've been still a student on this. But the way I see it, and we already saw Unmesh Vagsar talk about 2000 years, Shantanu sir about 150 years. I limit myself to what I know. So it's about 30-35 years ago. If you hear, all of you must have, or most of you must have heard about the ISRO cryogenic technology sanctions played by US. Which impacted Indian space segment in a big way. And that actually kind of led us to double down on our efforts to look at indigenous technology, of course, from help from some friendly nations. That was sometime back in early 1990s. And about more than 35 years later, if you see now, India is a space power. So from crisis, we have actually utilized that crisis and indigenized and put in a lot of efforts, and actually came to a position where we are leading the effort in terms of space technology. So it's not all too bad, or you don't need to be unduly worried in terms of our industry as well. I mean, of course, our industry has seen ups and downs. Pre-independence, we were one of the major shipbuilding countries in the world, and of course, currently we are in a state where we are. But having said that, coming back to the topic of the sanctions, the 1990s, India was a fairly small country in terms of economic power, military might, as well as the general clout in the world forum. If you look at the current scheme of things, India is still a significant major economic power. So in that sense, we are more resilient to these global challenges, which is also in some sense reflected. For example, when the energy supply was about to be disrupted by the sanctions, the West knew it, and then they basically ensured that the sanctions have enough loopholes so that the oil gets routed through third-party countries, which of course India is a beneficiary of. So these are kind of signs of India as a nation growing in terms of stature, and therefore ability to utilize these opportunities. So crisis comes in different ways. It can either hit you, impact you badly, but also it can be beneficial. India has been able to navigate itself on the world forum, both in terms of economic as well as diplomatic means, and ensure that we have not been impacted, or rather we benefited from the disruption per se. What we've been able to do is what we actually happen to see in is the trade realignment. So essentially, the trade, the movement of oil or other commodities have found its own different means because of the impediments which came through as a matter of sanctions. So that is something which has kind of benefit us. But why we have been able to do it? I think one essential part is because of our strategic autonomy. We have never been part of a bloc per se, and that is something which really helped us to tide over this crisis in some ways. With that, I would like to, I think I've crossed my time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, you have heard the four panelists who have given their views on this very relevant topic of the present time. And I'm sure, given the situation around the world, particularly in two centers of conflict going on, you would have certainly some questions in your mind or some views. In short, I therefore request you to tell your name and then introduce yourself by your name and ask questions, if any, giving the name of the panelist to whom you are addressing the question. Please.
So good afternoon. My name is Om Prakash Agrawal, and my question to Unmesh Wag sir. Listen, yesterday elections took place, although it is not related with the subject, but since it relates to Vadhavan port, and we all are very, very concerned, the whole country is concerned. And one of the political leader of one political party mentioned that if they win, they will not allow Vadhavan port to come in. So I know it's not very easy question to answer, but since you are here, and I remember in the last meeting you had where you addressed us, and you said that come what may, the Vadhavan port is going to come, and 29th March is the completion of the first phase. So again, it has set jitters to the trade. So would you like to clarify anything on this subject, if possible? Thank you.
Omji, I mean, I will answer this question first thing. And because Manoj is also watching, so I will be little careful while answering. So, see, the political posturing is one thing, because then you are in a different mood. But as far as Maharashtra is concerned, and I have met all the leaders of all the major political parties, and I am confident that all the leaders of Maharashtra are committed for the development of Maharashtra, and Ward 1 is the development of Maharashtra. So you don't worry, whatever time I have given, it can be preponed but not postponed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I think thanks to all the panelists and Sinha for navigating this session beautifully. So this navigation geopolitical storm, I think it's been happening since World War I, World War II. It's going to happen and it's going to continue to happen. What was different is pandemic, which happens once in 100 years. First one is, I think, somewhere in 1810 or 12, and then this happened in 2020. That is what changed, and that was caused the maximum disruption. It will find its own way. Today, India, no nation in the world can do without trading with India. Because for their sustainability, they are not fully reliant on China, though China volumes and everything is 100 times, 1,000 times more. Like my friend Vivek mentioned, let's not even compare. But we don't want to be compared with China. So now my one point is, sir, that what has happened or what has not happened, let us take one of the points that Captain Anand mentioned. Sir, we are now 2% or 1% of, or 5% trade is carried on Indian bottoms. Till 1986-87, 48% of Indian cargo was being carried on Indian bottoms. And it's come down gradually, it's coming down. It has made no difference to any of the political parties or nothing. Trade is going on. Shipbuilding from 0.7% in 2002 jumped down to 1.9% because the government gave a subsidy. Any country, shipbuilding needs a support. And that's the time when the world was, shipbuilding was growing. They pulled out the rug, subsidy was gone, and it dropped down from 1.7% back to 0.2 or 0.3%. So it's one thing which we need constantly, and now which we are getting for last, probably since 2014, is a policy stability. And that is one very big step towards going forward. Shantanu sir mentioned about Suez Canal. Suez Canal was closed for many, many years. When I started sailing in 1971, we didn't know that Suez Canal will never open. Then in 75, May, June, it opened. It was a dream. The entire business scenario changed. Now Houthis have come, they blocked Suez again. It took no time for the trade to, it cost a little more to the trade. It finds its own volume, sir. Everything will happen. But as we see it about the energy and fossil fuels, or whatever you call it, future is for India, and we are going to grow and grow in a very big way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Atul Kulkarni. I'm a young entrepreneur trying to do some business. So my question is, yes, everyone today talks about India, Indian economy. We have and probably the largest number of unicorns coming up in this country. So the whole nation is aspirational nation, as the Honorable Prime Minister talks about. My question is basically, how is the government trying to facilitate this entire? So you mentioned that, why are you looking at the government? End of the day, it is the government who makes it happen for us. So how is that whole ecosystem that is required for an entrepreneur to flourish? And as somebody mentioned that today, even the middle-size entity is looking for, the global platform. And that's where probably we need some clarification or maybe some, insight into how is that landscape changing. Thank you.
JS sir will answer this question, but before that, I would like to tell the best government can do is should keep away from you. So that we are doing. So don't let government to interfere. That is the biggest thing they can do. And rest he will tell.
See, so if I may be allowed.
Just let me say further on to what Mr. Wagh said. See, IT and beauty, these two sectors in India prospers before government understood IT and beauty.
And that's the beauty of it.
So just to in both we had the Miss World and Miss Universe in India, and IT sector nobody understood in government because it was ahead of time in government. Government normally knowledge in government follows the knowledge which has gone ahead. We were discussing that before this meeting. So shipping and airports in India suffered. Having worked in government and private sector and multinational, I can say from my experience that shipping, port or maritime and airport suffered in the country because of our philosophy till quite late, till mid-1980s, to be self-sufficient. When you want to be self-sufficient, you don't need any airport or port. Everything you want to produce in your country, erect high tariff walls, nothing can get imported because Indian goods won't be able to compete. That's why Ambassador car continued till late 90s. There was nothing else. So there was lack of expertise also in airport and ports and shipping. And I have one more reason to say. Most of the ministers of airport and shipping came from North India. They had not seen the port or shipping at all. And as it is, port is a custom restricted area. Generally, people don't know or understand ports because nobody is allowed to go there. And airport also is the same thing. As a result, public has very little interest. And coming back to the same thing, because of all this, the rules and regulations of custom and airport were very archaic and old and As a result, we suffered. We wanted to do trade and we wanted to do even in airport, air cargo and all that, our friends from the custom house agents or custom would be able to tell the kind of problems. Having worked in port, I understood it much better. So this ecosystem now is broken. And therefore you are seeing a spurt in the number of airports across the country. Our ports are able to compete with the best in the world now in terms of productivity. Transport chain itself is not very strong, is not as competitive, whole transport chain. But in between, ports have improved quite a lot. In 70s, 80s, if you can remember, from Marine Drive, you could see line of lights across the sea. Ships waiting to dock in Bombay port. Now you don't see those lights. Number of ports have gone up. The delays have reduced. So we have improved quite a lot. We have still to go quite a bit. But then we have to realize one thing that we need, which you have in private sector. You go on the people who understand the subject and get them in position. Unfortunately, this does not take place in government. People who know the subject, they become risk to people who are already in government. Even bureaucrats don't want experts in government. You see, and therefore, this is a problem that's why when Mr. Wagh says that we should leave government out, I fully agree with this, because expertise will never be promoted in government. And that's what I was talking to Mr. Ayrwar just before this. And therefore, we deal only with consultants. The expertise in government, we don't want to deal with them. So,
just to intervene out here, and then let me give you a good news on this thing that expertise is not permitted in the government. I think it is nowadays becoming an accepted thing that there should be expertise in the government, and there should be less reliance for expertise on outside agencies, including the consultancy firms, which we call Big Five or Big Ten or whatever, right? So there is hugely being nowadays promoted, and the era, present and future, in the government also, is of the specialists. I mean, the heydays of journalists are actually over. And today, you would see even the profile of the executives in the government, you will find more of the specialists than the journalists, right? And wherever, even in such situation where journalists are more in number, there again, at least the specialization is prevailing even over the journalist. So that's a positive sign, one. And again, if the government has, brought itself out of the business, earlier we were having, every business being done by the government department, just not the public sectors. And then we started with building public sectors, which was like leading by example. The government was trying to lead the economic mission or the entire activity by example. So created public sector, right? Including how to make bread and how to make steel. That was all being done by the government. Now today, the government has expressed much, much greater confidence in private sector, and therefore said that you can make bread, you can make steel, you can make airplanes, you can make ships, you can make anything in this country. So you are now trusted in much greater manner. So realize this, assimilate this, the confidence which has been expressed, and it is not unfounded, let me tell you. Actually today, if Mr. Wagh is able to say that Vadhavan is going to come, it is again based on the confidence in the private sector. The Vadhavan is not going to come through complete public expenditure. As I understand, this is a PPP project, right? So where from the money is going to come in a PPP project? Majority of the capital has to come from the private sector. So again, you are not only, you were earlier being governed, now you are coming into the government itself. So you can steer, and you have the complete levers in hand and control on the levers to take the government the way or the direction it wants to go and the pace at which it wants to move, right? As far as economic activities and economic development is concerned. But again, it requires some commitment and some bit of honesty and integrity from our own side, right? When you realize that you have a greater role today as a private sector into the governance of the country and also coming into the government, there has to be a higher level of integrity, higher level of the democratic principles, right? You are able to do justice with the larger national interest. Otherwise, if you have attained a powerful position as an economist of the private sector in the government, and if you start exploiting that, then we are in a different situation. We are definitely in a different situation.
Okay.
It is going to create a lot of heartburn among other private sector stakeholders as well. So that's what I was trying to indicate. Let's not be over-exploiting the situation and having these two messages going on simultaneously. On one side, the business want that government should be outside the business. On the other side, startup says the government should get things done for them. And actually we are doing it, ironically. Today, a lot of energy, a lot of resources are being just focused on the few numbers of startups, right? Who are attaining the unicorn status like a rocket. And they are not even knowing at the outset at what pace they are going to move with, in what direction they are going to move in, and what stage they are going to reach after some time. They even have not thought about whether their shelf life or their life cycle is going to be of 25 years, 5 years, or 50 years. They're just thinking about the takeoff. And then quickly reaching that unicorn and then extinguishing, coming down and experiencing a thud on the ground. So they are taking off and landing back. The unicorn status is a temporary status. Unfortunately, again. This is despite hand-holding by the government, a lot of resource being dedicated for this initiative, and full confidence expressed in that the startup stakeholders. Okay. I'm really proud of having a lot of unicorns in the country, but at the same time concerned about their present and future. They are still not being very thoughtful. Okay. The government is just putting resources. Right.
Okay. Any last question, if anyone has? Otherwise, we close the session. As it is, we have exceeded the time, Captain Bernard.
So I think I'll ask the question to Jay sir afterwards. We'll talk one on one.
One lady, this
last question. And to whom you are addressing, you should also say.
I would ask this question to GNPA Chairman Shri Unmesh Sharad Wagji. Given the ongoing geopolitical turbulence, should India prioritize green technologies over traditional energy sources, even at the risk of slowing economic growth? I'm Sunita from Bhandarkar Publications.
I mean, whether there is a geopolitical crisis or not, we should focus on green technology. So it is in spite of that. Because and the second thing is that the apprehension that green may be costly or it may slow down, that itself is not founded on the empirical evidences. Because wherever studies have been conducted, and it is seen that the green is never not necessarily a costly or it will slow down the process. As far as JNPA is concerned, we are committed for greening. At present, we are 60% of our energy is a green energy. Within 2 years, we are 100% green. Now, the only diesel used in our port is by the tractor trailers. Within 2 years, we will reduce it to nil, that also. So, next year, when you will have this session, we will 100% green and not only carbon neutral, but carbon negative. Thank you.
So I'll just take 1 minute to answer the question, because I don't think anybody is there from Ministry of Port Shipping and Waterways. So representing from the JNPA side, from the Ministry Directorate General of Shipping, it is my duty to answer this question what sir has asked, because he was asking that government is not pushing, or we all agree that now the intention is always more not as a regulator but as a facilitator. So while facilitating, the ministry has come up with policies and policy documents such as the Maritime India Vision 2030 document and also the Amrit Kal Vision 2047,
where the government has aimed to be one of the top 10 nation for shipbuilding and ship repair yard, where a maritime fund, development fund of 30,000 crore rupees is entrusted from the government side, from the ministry side for this project. Additionally, in the 2047, they are planning additionally in the top 5. That is one of the things. Also, the finance part, which I was about to say, that whether it is government side or not government side, we should always push for the green technology, which Vagsab was saying. The government is pushing for the hydrogen hubs, especially green hydrogen hubs throughout. And also they are planning for the multi-level fuel ecosystem across India. Also, the gift city, last point, the gift city which is there, which has been entrusted for the registry, there has to come a thinking, out-of-box thinking, where the thinking has to be not only to have a closed registry, but also to have a dual open registry, which the government will be obviously working on. Also, in that gift city, there is a concept of ship leasing. Ship leasing, where a private and public entity has come through, where around 500 crore funding is going to be done, where the ships will be given on leasing, where the owners can come for leasing, and when they are not able to maintain, they can give it back to the same owner. So these are the initiatives from the government side with policy, where not only regulation, facilitation is also being done. Thank you.
So just to mention, these are all band-aid solutions. 30,000 crores is peanuts.
But initially, government is starting.
Anyway, let's now we have exceeded time by half an hour.
Yeah.
So enough, we can discuss in tea time, etc.
Yeah.
After that. Yes.
Thank you, sir. So as we come to the end of the first session of today, and we thank all our panelists for their valuable insights and time, which, as Mr. Grover said, beautifully navigated by Sinha sir. May I request Atul Kulkarni ji to please felicitate Sinha sir.
What an honor. It's a pleasure to receive something from a friend.
May I request Om Prakash Agrawal ji to please felicitate Dr. Surendra Ahirwar, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Commerce. May I request Umesh Grover ji to please felicitate Shri Umesh Sharadwag, IRIS Chairman, JNPA. Captain Dinesh Gautama would request to kindly felicitate Shri Shantanu Bhadkamkar ji. Captain Dinesh Gautama to kindly felicitate Shri Shantanu Bhadkamkar ji.
Thank you.
Captain Vivek Bhandarkar would request to kindly felicitate Shri Santosh Patil ji, Head Corporate Affairs, Indian Register of Shipping. There is one more, yeah. One. Shri Santosh Patil ji. Thank you. Would I request all the panelists and Sinha sir to please come forward for a group picture? Captain Bhandarkar can also join. Bharti ma'am, you can also join, please. Ladies have to be ahead.
She's a nice
Yeah.
She's preparing the next day.
Yeah. They're ahead of their time, you know. Thank you once again, Sinha sir, and all our panelists today for such an insightful discussion today, which has set tone for many of the discussions which would be off the stage. Now, as we move to our second session, titled Transforming Coastal Shipping in India. So we are about to start our second session of today, Symposium, Transforming Coastal Shipping in India. We are honored to have Captain Dinesh Gautama as the moderator. May I request Captain Dinesh Gautama to please come on the stage. With decades of experience in maritime operations, Captain Gautama's expertise will guide us through this critical discussion on the future of coastal shipping in India. Captain Dinesh Gautama is Senior President at Sarjak Container Line, part of the Saksham Group. Joining him today as our eminent panelists are Captain Daniel Joseph, Deputy Director General of Shipping. Captain Daniel Joseph would request to kindly come on the stage. Captain Ravindra Kumar, Head MBC Operations, JSW Shipping and Logistics Private Limited. Shri CM Muralidharan, India Area Director, Unifeeder Group, DP World. And Captain Unmesh Abhyankar, Joint President, Adani Ports and SEZ Limited. Would request all of you to please welcome our moderator, Captain Dinesh Gautama, and all our panelists with a round of applause. And a kind request to please take your seats so that we start our second important session of today's symposium on transforming coastal shipping in India. So we have our moderator and all the panelists on the stage. So kind request to put your cell phone on silent mode and please take your seat so that we start today's session. After this panel, we will be having networking opportunities. Thank you all. So over to you, Captain, to start the important discussion on transforming the coastal shipping in India.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, transforming coastal shipping. I have a small panel, but a very large topic for discussion. According to me, I took a lot of time making the syllabus for this. The trouble is that there were more than 20, 30 topics. I had to just select about 4 because there were 4 panelists. Then I had to go into the background of these panelists to see they are experts in what area. They are quite they are quite highly focused on their systems. For example, I selected 4 topics out of 20. My 4 topics were, one was containerization in coastal shipping, other was bulk and break bulk in coastal shipping, the third one was ports, and the fourth one was its regulation. Now, when I look at coastal shipping, I don't want to spend too much time because they're the ones who are supposed to speak, not me. When I look at coastal shipping, I found only one anomaly. And what was that anomaly? The oldest shipping act is called the Coasting Vessels Act of 1838, signed at the time of Bahadur Shah Zafar. Of course, after 1838, we made a lot of improvement. 1856 came the Bill of Lading Act. Then we had 1908, the Indian Ports Act. 1917, the Inland Vessels Act. 1927, the Lighthouse Act. 1925, the Carriage of Goods by Sea Act. We had the Merchant Shipping Act of 1958. And then you come up to the Customs Act of 1962, and you come to the Major Port Trust Act of 1963, and the last one, of course, the latest is the Multimodal Transportation of Goods Act of 1993, which became effective from October in 1992. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. It was done through an ordinance. Backdated and done. Okay, so now we have Captain Unmesh, a banker, the joint president in Adani Ports. We have Mr. C.M. Muralidharan. He's one of the experts in coastal shipping for containerization. Then we have Ravindra Kumar. Yes, he's been with JSW and will be talking on the break bulk. And of course, Captain Daniel Joseph, no introduction needed. He'll be the one talking on all the everything that regulates coastal shipping. Now, I don't want to exceed my time and my brief, because I have to be very careful. We have to tear through our manuscripts fast, like a bulldozer on the rampage. Okay, so whom should I start with? I know it's like a classroom, what I'm doing, which I shouldn't be that, but your time starts now. Murli, tell me something. What is it that is keeping the containerization into coastal shipping not speeded up? Coastal shipping, containerization. Let's have your view on that.
Thank you, Captain. Yeah, myself, Muralidharan. I am heading Unifeeder. It's a part of DP World. Earlier, I was at the Transworld Group. So I'll just give a brief, just a quick brief about the journey of coastal containerized movement, when it is started and what is the status of today, where it stands. So I was with Transworld Group when we started this containerized movement concept in way back 2002, with one ship connecting from Gujarat with the southern ports. And it was very difficult to convert or to convince the trade, to switch from one traditional mode into this new sea route. It was really difficult, but somehow we managed to convince and start rolling over this, movement, 2002. And slowly, gradually, today, if I say like there are 4 operators operating total 17 containerized ships within India connecting different ports. Out of that, 10 ships are deployed by us, our group, Unifeeder DP World. It's an Indian flagship, and we are connecting all 12 major ports for transporting this cargo in a containerized movement today. So, if I talk about the volume, when we started, it was like 50, 100, then it's gradually into 2,000, 3,000. That 2,000, 3,000 remained almost 7 to 8 years in that level. But today, the container trade, if I talk, we are doing almost close to 3 lakh TEUs in a year, 7 million ton cargo. But this I'm talking about an annual volume, So if you look at the overall cargo movement within India, the cargo which is moving like the traditional mode like road and rail, of course today the road is covering almost 57% of the trade and rail almost 32%. The balance, that 10-12 is the coastal, which includes container, gas and oils, break bulk, everything. So the continuous movement, if you look at, it's a very nominal, kind of 3 lakhs, it's a big figure in a year. But if you look at the potential which the cargo is moving by road and rail, if I convert into this, the 3 lakh, even more than 3 lakh can be done in a month. So that is the scenario. So what I mean, like, in spite of having, I don't want to explain like because all seniors are sitting here, like everyone knows like what is the difference when the cargo is moving by sea or what the same cargo move by road or rail, the advantages. So I don't want to repeat that. In spite of having a lot of advantage, still the conversion ratio is extremely low from this road and rail to coastal. That is the scenario, today. The reason could be many reasons, but the one particular reason, like what challenges what we are facing as an operator, like, as I mentioned, there are millions of tons is still moving with the other modes. Our ships, one way we are almost full, but in the return leg, we don't have that much cargo, to carry that. So the operation kind of the mode of operation is one way the vessel is full and the return leg it's almost empty. 25%, hardly you are getting 20-25% cargo, which is killing the entire viability of this business. There could be many number of reasons, like, so in every time what we are discussing or requesting, like as the previous panel discussion, the secretary sir has mentioned, like the government is not there to do the business, but of course, here the request is like, as a facilitator, like, there has to be some kind of mechanism or there has to be some kind of guidelines, to move at least 5 to 10% of the total production of the government PSUs or the corporate, like, at least to move it 5% is also good enough for, the operators which are operating today, and there will be many operators, there will be many cargo. But today the situation is like the ships are like, sometimes it's 50% utilized, sometimes it's 70% utilized. So the tonnage is available, but it's not 100% utilized because of this kind of, So that is the one request. And another challenge what in the coastal could be one reason why it is not, developing that way is the connectivity challenge in the first mile, last mile. There are, even though there are close to 200 minor ports, we are not talking about develop all the 200 ports. At least maybe geographically, where the main areas, 1 or 2 ports, whether it is PPP model or from government, there has to be some connectivity between these minor ports and these major ports, which will also again help to develop this coastal. As Captain asked, what are the challenges? Another one today, the coastal cargo. Even though we are operating these containers through the notified ports, which ports is allowing, but whereas the coastal cargo is not allowed to handle in a CFS or the facilities which are available, because there has to be a denotified area, which is not available. So what I mean, like the long distance cargo, which always we need to send the container right up to the factory and stuff it, get it back to the ports, which is a costly affair, So what we are talking about, the viability is, clean there. So there has to be some cargo stuffing facility or complex within the port, like, has to be there. And then the second thing, like, it's not, I won't say it is only a coastal vessels, but if I look at, compare the neighboring ports, like the port coast, for my vessel, like, it's a GRT of 27 to 30,000 metric ton. That GRT ships, when it goes to Jiblali, we are paying almost close to 8 lakh rupees, Indian rupees. But whereas the same vessel, which calls Indian ports, the port cost itself is 33-34 lakh rupees. This is, in spite of we are getting a 40% discount from the government, So these are the few areas, like, where really if you want to develop the coastal, these few areas, like mainly the cargo support from the PSUs and the corporate. The second, the cost effectiveness. Third, the connectivity, from hinterland to the port has to be there. These are the few things, so then I can go.
Thanks a lot. I think it's Is you can hear? Yeah. No, thanks a lot. That was a very nice analysis. The point that I picked up was that yes, you would like to make use of the CFS and ICD, and that is not a notified area, and you cannot do that. So yes, that's a challenge. I think that's something which we have got to look into as well. But don't you think that there should be multimodal logistics parks, not necessarily having the full area notified and all that? Because the entire purpose of a CFS or ICD is at least have 80% or 70% of the area notified, and the balance can be denotified and remain unnotified, and that can work in this.
Yes.
That's the way it should be. The second thing, which because you mentioned coastal, the last time I remember, it was a very nice attempt made by one of the local shipping companies from Morbi to 30 miles off Cochin, multimodal, for $500. I mean, that we're talking about 10 years ago. That was a very nice concept. Very nice. The only thing was the Multimodal Transportation of Goods Act will not permit that. It doesn't cover that. Please read the Multimodal Transportation of Goods Act. It says from a place in India to a place outside India. You're taking it from Morbi, Kandla, Cochin. Doesn't apply. So, these are some of the critical points which require that even the coastal trade, if it has to improve, it gets stuck somewhere here. And I know that we were part of the committee to change the rules and everything, but it didn't really work out at that time. I think, let me come to Unmesh. You're one of the top in the port sector. Till today, I can't figure out whether we got 12 ports, 13 ports, 14 major ports. Major. Otherwise, I know there are about 199 ports in India. Why I said 12? Because the 13th one will obviously be Vadhavan, which has. And what is a major port? What is a major port? A major port is any port that is notified by the central government. Finished. So any port can become. So earlier, when we had minor ports and intermediate ports and major ports, that terminology changed. Because what was happening, that you had a Kandla Port Trust, you had a Kandla Port Trust Act, Madras Port Trust Act, Calcutta Port Trust Act, you had so many Port Trust Acts that finally we had to make one and call it the Indian Port Trust Act. That's it. So that's major Port Trust Act and then go by that. Now, I know that you've been in the front, you've hectored the market for ports in this area. How does it relate? What is it that the Indian ports need to give a fillip to coastal shipping?
Well, I think this is a question which can go on and on and on. We have not found a solution as yet. So we can sit down, what exercise has been going on for the last 19 years, to sum it up in 3 minutes is not possible, but I'll try and sum it up. See, our entire discussion has been coastal shipping, coastal shipping. Coastal shipping, let's understand, is just one leg of the overall scheme of things. If you look at the start where the cargo starts, what you're looking at, first mile, last mile. When you look at the first mile, you're getting into port, you're looking at the port cost, then you're looking at the ocean leg, then again you're looking at the port cost, and then you're looking at the last mile. If you're looking at coastal shipping to be viable, then you should have the consumption and the generation at the coast. Let me give you an example. Ambuja, which started off the cement carriers in '93, which we recently had taken over. Muldwarka is the loading port. Panvel is the discharge port. Both consumption area, production area, consumption area, cost is about 500 rupees per ton. Then when you're looking at the overall scheme of things, what is the ocean freight transportation cost? Only ocean freight. It's about 20 paise per ton kilometer. When you look at the rail transportation cost, for containers about 1 rupee 10 paisa, for bulk it's about 1 rupee 60 to 170. And what's the road transportation cost? 4 rupees 50. So when you look at these numbers, you feel that ocean should actually win. Of course it should win. Coastal shipping should win. But when you add the first mile and the last mile, that's where it actually goes out. If you had the industry on the coast, that is the generation consumption, you would have had a winner. So every coastal route which is successful today, where the generation, even if it might be first mile, but last mile is missing, it has been successful. If you look at the east coast, where you look at Paradip and Dhamra as the loading points, and you got consumption at Krishnapatnam, Tuticorin, Karaikal, you're transporting about 25 plus million tons of coal. Successful. Why? Because your overall rail cost versus even the rail sea plus port cost is cheaper. Therefore, it's successful. Ambuja shipping classic case, it's successful. We are also looking at adding more ships where the coastal route would be successful, possible. But we actually did an experiment to show that if I transport a vehicle from North India all the way to South India, I'm looking at only cost, whereas a truck would take it 18 meter long, 24, I don't want to get into all the semantics of it. But see, cargo will find its own level like water. If your cost, that is the total cost of ownership, not isolated port cost or rail cost or road cost, is cheaper. So to discuss the coastal shipping, we are only discussing, unfortunately, one leg. If you look at the cost of ship ownership, take the capital cost, operation cost, and other costs. You're looking at capital cost as 30%, fuel cost as another 35, 36% if you're using fuel, and the balance is administrative depending on the vessel types. So you remove the capex, suppose it's captive cargo, it's a successful model. So to say coastal shipping to succeed in the country, yes, it's possible. Get the production and get the consumption in the right place. I think JSW has a successful model. JSW, they're bringing in the larger ships, unloading over there, taking by coastal route, successful. We are looking at Sanghi, that's what we have acquired now. Moving along from Sanghi all the way, again would be a successful because you got the production, consumption at the same location. But if you are looking at first mile connectivity, last mile, unless the volumes are there, it becomes a non-starter. Let me give you another example. If you look at loading of a, say, 160, 170,000 tons of coal in Dhamra or Paradip, assuming Paradip can also accept Cape size, that 17.6 meter draft, total ocean freight cost per ton comes out to 20 paise, port cost comes to 20 paise per ton kilometer, that's about 40 paise. But you take the rail cost. Now, if coal was to be transported from there, in spite of the rail, which is about 400, it will still work out cheaper. So, to consider why coastal shipping is not successful is only in isolation. Unless you look at the total cost of ownership for a particular product, it becomes extremely difficult. And this is what we have been doing. You can bring in all the efficiency in the port. I'm looking at cost, not the tariff. Ports is a $6 business. You can look at any balance sheet. Any publicly listed company's balance sheet is a $6 business for cost per ton or revenue per ton. How efficient they are is a separate issue. You look at the major ports in this. So when you sum up all these things, what is the total cost of ownership? Will it succeed? If the cost is equivalent or better than rail transportation or road transportation, it will definitely succeed. You won't require any SOPs. But if you are looking at giving SOPs, do we have the capacity to give the kind of SOPs that you're going to actually kill the entire thing? The answer is no, because that's not what's there in the kitty. So production, consumption, the efficiencies, I would say, as Sinha Sahib rightly said, today we have the efficiencies of scale, we have the expertise in the ports, we can compete with the best of the European ports or Japanese ports, or no, I want to say the US ports because they're lagging behind in efficiency. We are right where we should be, or if not better. So that is not a discussion point at all. If you look at the port efficiency, the deepest of the ports in the country, Vizhinjam started recently, you have a 75-80% berth occupancy, 20.8 meter depth, so 400 meter vessels, what we call the triple E vessels can call from day one. Are we there? Yes. If you look at the productivity, of course we are there. Total cost of ownership, yes. So let's not look at it in isolation. Let's look at the entire value chain, then remove the coastal shipping, which is only one leg of it. Thank you.
Okay. I will ask an out of syllabus question. You mentioned that mostly coastal shipping of the first mile, last mile has got a problem. If the areas of production and consumption are deep in the interior, don't you think inland waterways might help?
Extremely good question. I think everybody must have seen the EUI which had come out for NW5, which was connecting Dhamra, Paradip to Talcher, which is 200 kilometers up the Brahmini River. 10 of my team members worked for 15 days to create that entire deck, where we actually went and had a chat with the IWI chairman, Mr. Bandyopadhyay, at that time. We gave him the costing and everything. Is it workable? The answer is yes. what is required from the government, you know what was the total project cost? It would have worked out about 15,000 crore. For a government, it's a small amount, but for any private sector to infuse, it would be a large amount. We had also discussed, why don't you make it a HAM model? No, 8 barrages. I said the advantage of going ahead with this, you have inexhaustible supply of capacity, whereas rail you have limited. You are trapping the fresh water, which is otherwise running into the sea. You can put channels, irrigation channels, this all in public domain, so I can make that statement. You can irrigate the land, have 3 crops. So we gave this entire thing to the government. It took a start. It was gasping for breath. That was the end of the story. But is it a doable model? Of course, answer is yes. When you're looking at the next 200 years, do you think 15,000 crores is a small amount? Of course, it's a small amount. And when it's a HAM model, it's definitely a doable model. What we had come out with, let the government look at putting the barrages, lifting the rail and road bridges. We would be ready to invest 3,000 plus crores in about 100 plus barges, make it viable, because then we are looking at 4.5 meters of water depth to 5 meters. That's when it becomes viable, because you have cargo on both the sides. You have the import coking coal, which is going to the steel plants up to Pangpal, and you go up the river to Talcher. You have the thermal coal, which is going as export to Paradip, which is coastal, but we are calling it export. Completely doable. Somebody has to, that is the government has to take that initiative, come forward, doable.
Thanks a lot. I think that was very well answered. I have a feeling that the question paper leaked out. Okay, now I come to Captain Ravindra. We've finished with ports and we finished with containerization. What do you think can be done to improve further the coastal shipping, especially in the areas in which you are there?
Thank you, sir. First of all, I must thankful to this particular occasion where I have been given a chance to speak on the coastal shipping. Likely, our seniors are here, and he has already highlighted most of the aspects of the coastal shipping, which are happening along the coast. And Captain Gautam, which introduced about the new challenges which are going to become here in the near future. Right now, as the Captain Banker sir has said, for a successful model in the coastal shipping, the production and the consumption should be situated near the coast of the India. In JSW model, either it's Ambuja cement model, both the places are along the coast of the India. Here in JSW, what we have integrated the coastal shipping along with the inland shipping. So I think that is one of the thing we have done already with the proper utilization of National Waterways 10, that's Amba River Channel. And in the recent coastal shipping bill that has been introduced last month, there is already integration of the coastal shipping along with the inland shipping has been already provisioned. So when we are talking about the raw material transport through the coastal shipping route, basically for the process industry, which are indeed raw materials, especially the energy coal in the form of the coal or the petcoke, we want this particular raw material to be up to the last mile, up to the process industry where it is situated. So when we see what will the total cost when we indulge our coastal vessels, so the biggest challenge which comes, that is with the capacity and the cost. Here at the JSW, like the innovative idea which have come with the transportation of raw material through our MBC vessels that are working with the 8,000 deadweight with the least draft, I will say, that can navigate in the Amba River Channel. With the draft of 4.9 meter, we are transporting a cargo quantity of 8,000 metric tons every day. So we have come up with the idea of introducing the MBC, and that is till date we have already covered almost 40 metric million tons of cargo. So that's one of the huge quantity if we see in a year at the minor port, Dhamtar port, we are handling almost 24 million metric tons of cargo through the coastal shipping route only. So that's not a small quantity, I will say. And we are going to increase the plant is also going to increase from 10 MTPA to 15 MTPA. So the whole idea is the best and the cheapest part of the coastal shipping is to supply the raw material through these coastal shipping routes. As we are introducing more vessels, like the more we are going in the more part of this coastal shipping only, we also see a lot of challenges. The challenges which comes, that already I discussed, like most of the challenges are with the river channel navigation. There's the support from the government that is in fact required from the IWAI. IWAI has already done the survey, but as the traffic will increase, I think the Sanghi Cement is also going to start their operations in that particular river channel only. So as the operations will increase, there will be challenges, and that challenges need to be encountered and the solution need to be provided by the IWI. That is the part of the government only. But whatever the proper utilization of this particular channel and the coastal shipping we have done with the least cost so far, we are still managing and we are supplying it. The challenge which is coming, that is like the sir is from the ministry. We are introducing more and more coastal vessels, but the biggest challenge is coming right now is with the skilled manpower. The skilled manpower who will run the show, that is, we are in acute shortage. And we are facing this challenge on day-to-day basis for running the vessels, as the efficiency also depends on the quality of the crew which is being employed on these particular vessels. So when we have to develop a better network, better coastal shipping routes, we need to think about the basic requirements which need to be supported from the all industry stakeholders. Ministry is also one of the part. So once that particular part will be introduced, better we will be doing. As a process industry, as a JSW group, as other stakeholders like the Ambuja Cement, everybody is much more interested how the government is going to support. Here only not the support from the central government side, here the state government also need to look after the maritime issues, maritime interests, what we understand that need to be supported. There are still, I find some gray areas in the form of the coastal shipping, like recently under coastal shipping bill, this trading license part has been removed. But still that need to be covered under what type of vessel it is. There are different category of the vessel have been included, like the RSV4, RSV2, even IVSOC type of vessels, which have been given different trading limits. But how the port is going to accommodate these particular limits in their own jurisdictions, that is still a part of the challenge. The other challenge, sir, what I just feel like the fuel what we are utilizing right now in the coastal vessels, and Ambuja has already taken the great initiative of taking into the green energy in the form of the biodiesel utilization. So the new innovative energy options are already available in the market. But at the same time, the government is going to support in that particular way how this particular initiative can reform our coastal shipping. Coastal shipping in the form of providing the bunkering stations near the operating ports, near the minor ports, that will ease out the supply of these green energy fuels. Sir has told about the hydrogen fuel supplies and all that. In the similar way, I can see in the Singapore, there are LNG bunker barges has also come up. But to put these things into the cheaper shipping coastal trade, how these things is going to implement in the near future, that is still a challenge.
Thanks a lot, because one real point that you brought out was the need for skilled manpower, which you're facing a shortage for. And that is really a critical issue. I now come to the last panelist, Captain Daniel Joseph. He'll probably needs no introduction, but he can always speak a minute about himself. And then let's see what are the regulatory challenges and the restrictions and the policies relating to coastal shipping.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I'm honored to be here. Captain Daniel Joseph. I'm Deputy Director General of Shipping. presently, I am posted at the Directorate General of Shipping. The headquarters is in Mumbai, Kanjurmarg, under the Ministry of Shipping. I presently look after the seafarers part, but I also additionally develop on the part related to the coastal shipping. Before I want to answer the challenges which were raised, I do agree. If you Google and see, it is Coasting Vessels Act 1838, then it was repealed, and it was through 1958 Merchant Shipping Act, and through an executive order 1 of 2014, the coastal vessels are regulated. And also you have a similar kind of notification for river sea vessels, and you have for IV Act also, through IV Act 1917, then 2021 amended. So these are the archives acts which are available, and government has taken steps to revive this with the industry consultation. Obviously, ICSA was involved big time. The latest update is last week, Merchant Shipping Act 1958 was approved by the cabinet. Similarly, coastal vessel bill is also approved by the ministry, the cabinet, and possibly this winter session these both act will be tabled for finalization and then assent by the president. Obviously, a lot of discussions have happened. Coastal bill and merchant shipping are there in the website for last six years. So what we initially started, after consultation, lot of changes have happened. Important change which has been brought, I will not talk about MS bill, I will talk more on coastal bill, where the important thing which one is related to the removal of the GTL, General Trading License. That is an important aspect which has been taken care of. Obviously, through the rules, whatever challenges are there, which will be downstreamed and streamlined for the benefit of the industry. The discussion which I was having, it was beautifully explained by Captain Abhankar, that it is not as if it is always from the first mile to the last mile. If the production and the source and the taken care of the goods are in the same place, wherever the port is, it will be a win-win. But it can't be in every port, no? So there has to be some connectivity. Directorate has taken initiative. Through the MSDS, we had increased with certain norms for the vessels, IV vessels with specialized SOC by the IRS. They can trade up to 5 nautical miles, in the coast of India. That one step was taken. Additionally, Directorate had tied up with INCOIS. INCOIS is the ocean-going Indian center who do the wave analysis. So basically, the ships are structured. Basically, the strength is the main thing. Those ships are strengthened depending upon the significant wave height. So there was a survey carried out, and boys were put over all over India to survey where is this height, significant wave height of 2 meters. Because the IV, if IRS guys are there, they can pitch in always, that 2 meter is the limit. Beyond 2 meters limit, these IV vessels cannot withstand. So then a study was done. At certain places we have decided that if it is beyond 2 meters wave height, if it is more than 5 miles, and throughout the coast if the vessels can go, and for last 20 years or 30 years the significant wave height has never gone beyond 2 meters, we can allow up to those area to the vessels to trade. That was a policy decision which is still pending. Basically it is depending upon the ICSA, where they have come up with additional safety measures. Obviously, what will happen if, God forbidden, the wave height increases in that area, and we have given permission. So these are the challenges. The second challenge I will just quickly sum up is whoever I have discussed here, like what are the challenges you are facing? And I keep hearing that the cost is high. Running the coastal vessel cost is high. The most important cost is the manning cost. The seafarers on board, the challenges for the main trained manpower and the cost of the seafarer. So a thorough risk assessment has to be done. What can be the level which can be downgraded where the IV officers can transition to the coastal vessel? That has to be done. Obviously, we have done some kind of analysis, but ICSA has to come up in a big way so that the cost of the manning fee can be reduced. Those are my 2 bits. If there are any out of syllabus question, I'll be ready to answer.
No, because I'm afraid the audience might ask some out of syllabus questions, because I can already see Captain Kiran. He's ready to go. No, sir. I think let me, before I start the session, only ask you what challenge you faced when you did this coaster.
You're asking me?
Yes.
Oh my God. This is completely out of syllabus.
Can I sit and talk? Yeah, it's a bit better. I can hear that. Now, first of all, you took me by surprise by asking this. I mean, this is a burning issue, which I'm simply licking the wounds which I suffered for several years. That's the thing. So we, just for the general public knowledge, some years ago, we had invested in a vessel on the prompting, the word is prompting, of Minister of Shipping, not Ministry of Shipping, Minister of Shipping at that time. And we were encouraged and we were told to do this, we will do this for you, we'll do that for you. Various things were upset. We went ahead and invested, bought a ship in Japan, brought her here, started operating, and from day one there were issues and issues and issues. You're talking about coastal shipping promoting? Here we go. If you hear some of the things, it will be shocking to you. Very first voyage, we had decided a port. We used to go to Hazira, sir, Hazira port over there, in your port. We started from the South India to, we wanted to do Kandla, but apparently it wasn't working out. She was a ram-fitted vessel. She had a side ram-fitted vessel which could carry 180 trucks, trailers, so which means about 250 trucks and 300 cars. And we started operating with a great gung-ho about it. On the very first voyage, we had collected about 150 trucks in Mangalore port. They were standing outside. The Mangalore port was very cooperative. They allotted us a piece of land just outside the port, no cost to us, so that the trucks could park. The trucks were parked. Now, this is where the real bureaucracy and unfortunate things start happening here. Majority of those trucks were carrying the traditional cargo coming out of Karnataka to Gujarat. Supari, arak nut. Now, these are the things. Now, they all used to carry from central Karnataka right up to Gujarat by traditionally years and years going on. Now they wanted to come by sea. Here they were in one place, 150 trucks. Suddenly the sales tax department decided to raid that area. And you're not going to believe what happened after that. Apparently, this trade was going on. I mean, I know the numbers. I will not use them here in the open forum. But there were some declaration of the value and the amount of sales tax was paid. It is an agricultural product. Nobody could say this costs so much or this costs that much. So they were raided. They were raiding about 5-6 trucks. Rest of the 100 trucks disappeared from there. That is my first voyage. They decided to go, and the news traveled. It took a while to do that. Then the rest of the other cargo, other trucks which are there, the custom officer wanted to inspect the coastal cargo. He wanted to open the trucks and inspect the cargo inside for whatever reason. Apparently, I flew down to Delhi at that time and met the secretary, and he called up the revenue secretary and he said, What are we doing? Why are you inspecting the cargo? Do you have a specific tip? And it so coincidentally happened, that meeting with that, Mr. Deepak Shetty was sitting there. As a coincidence, he was on a different connection over there, and because he's IRS, the Secretary Shipping asked Deepak Shetty, can they do that? So Deepak Shetty categorically said, no, sir. They have to show, they have to prove that there is a specific tip of some malafide work going on. And that is where my service started ending, although we ran it for a few years.
So basically, as I can see, you faced a lot of challenges.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
These challenges have no solutions.
Really running out of time, actually. Well, let me throw open to the audience. Anybody? Yes, sir?
Yeah.
In syllabus.
Yeah, this is with respect to the problem faced by the manpower supply in coastal vessels, specifically the near coastal vessels. But the question is to Dr. Captain Daniel. You see, when an officer performs the duties on a foreign-going vessel and a near coastal vessel, duties are almost the same. He does the same navigation, same cargo work, same safety operations. So if the foreign-going officer does not join the near coastal vessel or coastal vessels because he does not get the full time. So if a foreign-going certificate holder is given the full time, sea time for his examinations, then he may like to join the coastal vessels because he may be running short or he wants to have few months, he wants to spend at sea for his regions. So then he will like to join the coastal vessels and near coastal vessels. I think that can give some solution to the manpower supply in the coastal vessels. Thank you.
Yeah, that is a good suggestion, sir, because it is out of box thinking only, actually. Because the rationale why this thing was made, because the NCV trade is completely different, and foreign going is different, and we didn't want it to mix. The notion is first they want to come to NCV and grow up, gradually go to foreign going. But the other way, vice versa, is also possible because people may want to shift, and for some sea time and other options. That is a good suggestions, and which can be obviously looked upon for giving full sea time for examination. And also, sir, it's very bad news to hear that what has happened. But for that, I'm not sure if that is the solution. But because of this FAL convention, which is maritime single window, is applicable from 1st Jan 2024. So what we have done, the directorate has launched this through the help of portal. And this window is there, maritime single window, where all ports are connected. Weekly reviews are done. Today's date, 79 ports, including all major ports, are connected. And we are working on with customs, the ice gate thing, which is there, for integrating with ours and also with the immigration. So the talks are in the last stage where immigration, customs, Coast Guard, Navy, everybody will be brought together in this single maritime single window where the owners will avoid all kind of this bureaucracy. Once it is given, permission is given, all is clear. That is what the aim is. I don't know where we succeed, but we are working on that, sir.
Do we have time anymore or no? Okay. There are more than
Good
10.
afternoon. Yeah, good afternoon. My question is directed to, I am Philip Matthews. My question is directed to Dr. Captain Daniel Joseph G. See, the focus, we want, our government's aim is to have 20% Indian manpower by 2030. Now, the focus is mainly on foreign-going officers, whereas with the talks going on, there is huge impetus on coastal shipping. Our manpower in the NCV region as well as the IV region is acute shortage. There is no way that we are giving any advantage, or we are even looking at training of NCV officers in a big way. Just recently, I understand Shipping Corporation has started one batch of NCV officers. Simultaneously, there is a huge demand for Indian NCV people in GCC countries, as well as recently we have had inquiries from even other countries where they are going to unilaterally recognize our certificates. Considering this aspect, how do we expect to get manpower to cater to our ships? What actions can be taken? Secondly, I have been involved with the industry wage agreements for some time now. I really do not agree that we are overpaying the staff on our coastal vessels. The coastal vessel, if you compare the wages and all that, it is nowhere in comparison to NCV or even foreign going for the RSV or the ports and craft vessels. In this regard, may I have your comments, please? Thank you.
Sir, one by one. First question, the seafarer, it is close to my heart because I'm looking after seafarer issues, and I can keep on going. The meeting will never end. But I will tell you 2-3 things which we have done. We have promoted Sagar Mein Samman through women. We are catching now women seafarers into this sector. That is one thing. The second thing is, because these seafarers, they get trained and they jump to the other flag of convenience, COC, Panama, Honduras and other things, because they get paid highly. So we need to catch them and also start, as SCI has started, more especially for the coastal trade, because the mindset is always there, okay, bada jahaz mein jana hai, big ship mein kaam karna hai. That mindset has to change, and we have to promote like what SCI has started. You know? Also this IV transition which I was talking about, MMTI, Captain Dubey Saab can look into it. We can have a syllabus for those people for transitioning. We have already given one thing, but it is not working out. Also, we can look after the Agniveer scheme, because these people after 5 years already they have started. So these people can be also transitioned. So these all can be tapped. The second question which you asked about the wages, I never said about the wages. The question and the query from the industry was the manning scale. The manning scale is very high, you know, for the NCV. One master, one chief engineer, the level of manning scale is high. Maybe industry has to come back, ICSA, sit together with the directorate and reduce the manning scale, and we can see safety wise how we can reduce the cost. That was my saying, sir. Thank you.
I think sincerely I have to apologize, because I know there are more than 10 hands.
Not the question.
Yes.
Asked by Dr. Daniel Joseph to me about the manning scale and why the coastal shipping has not grown. So one of the suggestions I can tell you, the manning scale, since you are thinking of reducing, is a good idea. If you see Japan or any other place where the boats or small crafts are moving, for what cheaper is a dog.
Yeah, I got your point. But
Captain Kiran understood, and I don't want to say on the Supari, but let it be like that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your patience. This thing, I know many hands are up, but unfortunately, your hands are up, but my hands are tied.
Otherwise, you can take one.
One lady. Who's the lady? Yeah. Yeah.
My question is to Captain Umesh Abhyankar ji. Okay, so I would like to know if you can suggest, what can be done to streamline permissions and reduce compliance burdens for coastal vessel operators, and also if you can share an approach which can foster better coordination between central and state governments to promote coastal shipping.
I think it's long way addressed to me. Because, see, from private ports perspective, I'm not talking of the major ports, but private ports perspective, you already have a single window. You practically, once you get registered, you move in and out. You don't have to do anything. But if you're looking at easing everything, then it's a different ball game. I think we can answer this question after, because let me
put the cat amongst the pigeons just now. If you go from here by Indigo, do you have to have immigration clearance to Delhi? Okay. But if you go by bus, nothing. But if you go by a ship, you have to have immigration. So I think you should look into that. That let us be as Indian citizens with pride. I'm going from India into India. Why do I require an immigration clearance? And you know the hurdles. What Captain Kiran rightly said, I don't want to get into this, but look at it, ease of doing business. I think you had mentioned about the gift city, right? I'll add something over there. Cost of acquisition, 3.5% interest is the easy part. Leasing is the very easy part. What is the cost of compliance for an Indian flag? Let's discuss. Yes. Okay.
I think now I have to stand up and close it. Because you see what's happening. I know
Thank
that
you so
when
much,
in the
Captain.
classroom people want to rush out, but here people want to stay. That's the trouble.
So we come to an end of our insightful session on transforming coastal shipping in India, and we thank all the panelists led by Captain Dinesh Gautama. May I request Rajiv Sinha sir to please felicitate Captain Dinesh Gautama, Senior President, Sarjak Container Lines, for his beautiful moderation and insightful points raised for this panel session. May I request Captain Philip Matthew to felicitate Captain Daniel Joseph, Deputy Director General of Shipping. Captain Philip Matthew, may I request you to please come on the stage. For Captain Daniel Joseph, Deputy Director General of Shipping. Captain Dubey, would request your presence, sir, for felicitating Captain Ravindra Kumar, Head MBC Operations, JSW Shipping and Logistics Private Limited. Yeah, we need a step here. Captain Nazir Upadhyay to please come on the stage for felicitating Shri CM Muralitharan, India Area Director, Unifeeder Group, DP World. Captain Nazir Upadhyay. Captain Nazir Upadhyay felicitating Shri CM Muralitharan, India Area Director, Unifeeder Group, DP World. Can I have Captain Vivek Bhandarkar to felicitate Captain Unmesh Abhyankar, Joint President, Adani Ports and SEZ Limited. Would request to step ahead for a group picture. Bharti ma'am can join this time, please. Bharti Bhandarkar ma'am, please join for the group picture. Captain Vivek Bhandarkar, please stay behind for the group picture. Yes, then that's rightly said, sir. Bharti ma'am, please come on the center.
Thank you.
Now I would like to request Mr. Karunakar Shetty, Vice President, Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, and co-organizer of this event, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Before giving vote of thanks, I will take 1 minute of your time. We have witnessed two very good sessions, which was anchored by Madam Ambika Singhji, who is also senior manager from JNPA. I will request my friend Ashish Pednekar to come and felicitate her. Ashish ji. Bharti ma'am, please.
Very good idea.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As we conclude this enlightening symposium on coastal transformation and global challenges, we had two very good sessions navigating a geopolitical storm, India's path to sustainable growth, and transforming coastal shipping in India. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who contributed to the success of this event. A special thanks to our esteemed session moderators, Sri Rajiv Sinha ji, IAS, and Captain Dinesh Gautama for their insightful guidance and leadership throughout the discussions. I would also like to express our appreciations to all the distinguished panelists. I will not name now because we already introduced them here. So all the panelists, thank you very much. Your expertise and perspective have greatly enriched our understanding of the challenges and opportunities related to coastal transformation, as well as the vital aspects of the coastal shipping and its impact on our economy. Lastly, I would like to thank our audience for your participation and engagement. Together, let us strive and sustainable coastal development and address the global challenges we face. We also thank all our sponsors of these events. So thank you very much. Thank you. And we will all see our next event, which is Samudra Manthan Award 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shetty. And a small announcement, kindly retain your lanyards for the evening award function. If you're not retaining it, you would not be included in the award function.